She was only 5 years old, but every day felt like a nightmare. Little Emily had dreams like any other child, to play, laugh, and feel safe. But behind the closed doors of her small home, safety was the one thing she never knew. Her mother, once full of life, had changed. Struggling with her own pain, she lashed out at the only one who couldn't fight back. Each morning, Emily woke up hoping today would be different, but it never was. Neighbors heard whispers, but no one really knew what was going on inside that quiet house. Emily stopped talking in school, stopped smiling. Teachers were concerned, but the signs were easy to miss, until one day, something unexpected happened. A kind stranger crossed paths with Emily in the most ordinary of places, and in that moment, everything began to shift. A simple act, one that most would overlook, sparked the first flicker of hope in a life that had known only fear. This isn't just a story about pain. It's about resilience, about how one small light can change a dark world. It's about the people we meet, often by chance, who end up changing everything. Emily's journey is one you won't forget. But just when things seem like they're getting better, something happens that no one saw coming. What was the miracle that changed her life forever? And did it really last? Keep watching to find out. Emily's days blurred together, silent breakfasts, long walks to school with her head down, and quiet evenings pretending to do homework while her mother paced the house, always on edge. No one knew why her mother had changed so suddenly. People remembered her as warm and full of energy, but something had broken after Emily's father left. Since then, the house had grown colder, and so had her mother's heart. At school, Emily's teachers noticed her fading more and more into the background. She never raised her hand. She barely spoke. But her drawings told a different story, dark scribbles of stormy skies and lonely stick figures. One teacher, Miss Rivera, kept a watchful eye, gently trying to reach her. But Emily had learned to keep quiet. She thought if she stayed small enough, invisible even, the pain might go away. Then came the day in the park, a place Emily had wandered to when she couldn't take being at home anymore. She sat alone on a swing, her shoes dragging in the dirt, when an older woman sat beside her. She didn't ask questions, didn't push. She simply offered Emily half a sandwich and said, "Looks like you could use a friend." That moment stuck with Emily. Who was this woman? Why did she seem to care? And how did she even notice someone like her? But just as Emily began to open up, something happened that would test the fragile hope she was starting to feel. Something she never saw coming. The woman from the park, whose name was Mrs. Dawson, started showing up more often. Not in a way that felt forced, she always kept it simple. A small wave from a bench, a quick hello, or sometimes just a warm smile as Emily passed by. Slowly, Emily began to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time, seen. But even as that small connection grew, the fear at home never went away. Her mother's moods still shifted without warning. Some days she'd barely speak. Other days, she'd slam doors and cry for hours. Emily never knew what version of her she'd get. Meanwhile, Miss Rivera at school had started noticing changes. Emily was looking a little healthier, a little more alert, but the sadness in her eyes never left. Miss Rivera began keeping notes, quietly talking to the school counselor, unsure of what steps she could take without making things worse. She didn't want to scare Emily or risk pushing her back into silence. At home, Emily started hiding things. Notes from Mrs. Dawson, little sketches she made of the park, and a tiny bracelet Mrs. Dawson had once given her. They were small things, but they meant everything. They were hers. Still, the fear of being caught was always there. Her mother had become more watchful, suspicious even. Then one night, as Emily returned from the park a little later than usual, she found the front door wide open. The lights were off, and the house was too quiet. Something wasn't right. Emily froze at the doorway. The wind pushed gently against her back, but her feet wouldn't move. The whole way inside was dark, shadows stretching across the floor like long fingers. Her heart thudded in her chest as she slowly stepped inside, each creak of the old wood floor echoing louder than it should have. "Mom," she whispered, but there was no answer. The kitchen light, usually left on, was off. A chair was knocked over. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. She tiptoed toward the living room, the silence pressing in around her. That's when she saw it, the photo of her and her mom from when she was a baby, shattered on the floor. Next to it, the corner of a familiar notebook stuck out from under the couch. Her sketchbook, the one she kept hidden. She picked it up with trembling hands. It had been opened. Panic surged through her. Her mother had found it. The drawings of the park of Mrs. Dawson, the notes she had written to herself. Every secret was in those pages. Her safe place was no longer hidden. Just then, a noise came from down the hall. A door closing. Emily clutched the sketchbook to her chest and turned toward the sound. Her mother stepped into view, eyes red, hair messy, holding something in her hand that Emily couldn't make out in the dim light. Her face wasn't angry. It was something else. Confused. Lost, but the tension between them was sharp as glass. Neither of them said a word. Emily didn't dare move. Her mother's eyes were fixed on her, and the room felt heavier with every passing second. Then, in a low voice, barely above a whisper, her mother said, "Who is she?" Emily clutched the sketchbook tighter. She didn't answer. Her mother took a step closer, revealing what was in her hand. A crumpled note from Mrs. Dawson, the one Emily had hidden between the pages. It read, "Asterisk, you are brave. You are loved. You are not alone, asterisk." Her mother's voice trembled. "You've been talking to someone about me." Emily could see the pain under the anger now, but it didn't make her feel safer. "You want people to take you away from me?" her mother asked, her voice cracking. That's when Emily saw something shift, not just in her mother's tone, but in her posture. Fear. Not just hers, but her mother's too. Before Emily could respond, a loud knock echoed through the house. Her mother jumped. So did Emily. The knock came again, harder this time. Then a voice, calm but firm, called out from the front door, "This is Mrs. Dawson. Emily, are you in there?" Her mother's eyes widened. She rushed to the window, pulling the curtain back just enough to peek through. "Why is she here?" she hissed. "What did you tell her?" Emily's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't told Mrs. Dawson anything. Not really. At least, she didn't think she had. But someone had. And now everything was about to change. The front door burst open before either of them could move. Mrs. Dawson stood there, not alone. Behind her was Miss Rivera and a woman from Child Services. Emily's mother froze, her hand dropping the crumpled note. For a moment, everything stood still. Then Emily felt herself being gently pulled away, arms wrapping around her in a way that felt protective, not fearful. Mrs. Dawson whispered, "It's okay now, you're safe." Her mother sank to the floor, covering her face, not with rage, but with tears. For the first time, Emily saw something she'd never seen before, regret. The room was no longer filled with fear, but with truth. Miss Rivera knelt beside her, her voice soft. "Emily, we've been watching. We knew something wasn't right. Someone needed to step in." As Child Services asked questions and led Emily outside, she saw neighbors peeking from windows. The quiet house that had hidden so much pain was no longer silent. But just as Emily thought it was over, a voice called out from the porch. "Wait," said the woman from Child Services. "Mrs. Dawson, you said you had no connection to the family." Mrs. Dawson paused, eyes on Emily. Then, slowly, she reached into her coat and pulled out an old photo, faded, torn at the edges. In it, a much younger woman held a baby wrapped in a pink blanket. "I didn't," she said, her voice shaking. "But I do now. She's my granddaughter." Emily stared, her world shifting again. Nothing would ever be the same. Emily didn't know what to say. The photo in Mrs. Dawson's hand felt like a missing puzzle piece she hadn't even known was lost. Her heart raced, but not from fear this time, from something else. Hope. In the days that followed, everything moved fast. Her mother agreed to get help and entered a treatment program, finally admitting she hadn't been okay for a long time. It didn't excuse the pain, but it was a start. Emily was placed in temporary care with Mrs. Dawson, who, after proving her connection through old records and stories no one else could know, officially became her guardian. At first, it was awkward. They were still strangers in many ways. But each day brought small moments, shared meals, quiet walks, laughter that felt real. Emily began to draw again, not just storm clouds, but bright skies and growing trees. Miss Rivera stayed in touch, visiting often, making sure Emily knew she wasn't forgotten. One afternoon in the park, Emily looked at the swing where it all began. She turned to Mrs. Dawson and asked, "Did you know it was me when you first saw me?" Mrs. Dawson smiled, brushing back Emily's hair. "I didn't, but something told me I couldn't walk away." Emily's story didn't end with pain. It became a story of second chances, of healing, of people who saw her when she felt invisible. She may have started out broken, but now she was learning to feel whole. Sometimes, miracles don't come all at once. They come as people.